Days is a 2024 horror novel by Jacobsen. I came across this one by chance. I went to my local bookstore and started to browse the horror section. It's not that big, and so newer unfamiliar releases stand out pretty quickly. As we were coming upon the Christmas season, and you don't see a whole lot of explicitly Christmas-themed horror books in stores, I mean, there's a few, but a lot of it is more winter-themed horror than it is Christmas. Anyway, we were coming up on the holiday and I decided to read it. And I enjoyed it, so I figured I'd recommend it. According to the author's note at the end of the book, the author challenged himself to basically write the book in a sort of advent calendar style. There are 25 chapters in all, covering 25 separate days of the story. Fun fact, according to that same author's note, the author, who is Danish and lives in Spain, wrote this book in the summer in his house that looks out onto the Mediterranean. I found that kind of funny. We rotate between the four members of the Gray family. Dad Adam, Mom Beth, teenager Abby, and 9-year-old Chloe. The family dynamic has been a bit strained as of late, and Adam arranges for them to spend a week or so in a mountain cabin surrounded by wilderness to kind of get back together as a family. Where is this wilderness? Either Canada or the USA. The only hint I got in this novel is that a side character mentions that his wife is from the Ojibwe tribe. And that suggests either Canada, but also possibly northern parts of the American Midwest as well. So the family heads out to the cabin, and things slowly start to ramp up. The first day there, they find a stocking tacked to the barn door. Inside is a projector slide which depicts a picture of the cabin from a distance. This happens for a few days, the picture's getting closer and closer. Then other things start showing up in the stocking, and the family progressively realizes that things are getting a little too real for their tastes. So, first and foremost, the horror. Like I said before, it ramps up progressively, with little hints that something sinister is happening. In terms of both storytelling and horror, the book paced itself pretty well, considering that it takes place across 25 days. Especially once things become objectively sinister at the end of day 4. The stalker in this book ends up being a significant and kind of, very mysterious threat. This is a mild to moderate spoiler, I guess, but we never actually get a good explanation for who he is and why he's doing what he's doing to this family. The author actually talked about it in the author's note I mentioned, where he, I guess, made a tactical choice to not go into the stalker's motivations in favor of kind of keeping the story moving. I also want to call out that, generally speaking, the author set the situation in this book up very effectively for the style that he's going for. They're on a mountain in December, and in order to get off it, they have to travel down a long, winding, narrow road to get back to a fairly remote town. The family is at the mercy of the elements, and they can't just skedaddle whenever they feel like it. The characters did behave fairly intelligently, too. Without going into too much spoilery detail, they did think carefully about how to dodge the stalker, and they found ways to try and throw him off their trail. There was a lack of engineered stupidity in this book, is what I'm saying.
Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Smart. Yeah, okay.
Instead of making the characters dumb to keep them where the author needs them to be, the author got good at coming up with reasonable obstacles to hinder them and kind of keep them where he needed them to be. And it didn't come across as contrived either. It came across as very natural. The characters are decent. They're not super well developed, which I think was another concession to keep the story moving along at a good clip, so I'm not too mad about it. I think the two kids, Abby and Chloe, were probably the best characterized of the group, but otherwise they kind of fall into general mom, dad, teenager, baby of the family archetypes. Like I mentioned before, the story is well-paced and moves pretty quickly once the family clocks that there's a threat. I wasn't bored at any point during this book, and particularly in the second half, I was very locked into everything that was happening. The story progression was solid and stayed nice and cohesive despite rotating between 4 different sets of character perspectives. So yeah, I recommend 25 Days highly for a good Christmas read. I enjoyed it enough that I plan on taking a gander at Jacobsen's other works too.